Hi, I'm Ethan, and today I'm reviewing The Witcher. I actually had to make a note card for this because I tried doing this yesterday, and man, I just do not care about this show. Like, I'm sorry to everyone that likes it, but I found it really boring. Nothing really stuck with me, and reviewing it last time off the top of the head, I just couldn't do it. I kind of delved into just a I don't care attitude, sulking bag, just saying screw it. So I trying again, I guess. So, The Witcher is a fantasy, magic kind of old-timey English story, knights and all that, lots of witches. It takes place on the continent, that's what they call their world. They don't really explain much else about it. There's something to do with a fight in Nilfgaard, or Nilfgaard is like I guess they're a group of elves or a country or region area, and they're just invasively attacking more areas of the continent. So The Witcher, from the title, that's a profession, not a name. A Witcher is a person who essentially just slays monsters for money. Now, the main protagonist, the A-plot of the series, follows Geralt of Rivia, who is a Witcher, and he's got this attitude of he's just a very brooding person. He's got this philosophy where he doesn't want to kill humans, he only kills monsters. However, I noticed that in most of the episodes, he's a bit of a hypocrite about it. He'll get some humans will pay him, say, go kill this monster. He'll go to the monster and say, oh, this isn't a monster. This is some person that's been cursed. I'm going to save him. So he saves them. The humans get pissed, so he kills all the humans. Just something kind of hypocritical, I noticed. Geralt is unwillingly followed by Jaskier, who's a bard, which is a person that would play songs, write poems, and all that back in medieval times. Jaskier's following him around so he can write songs, and he's spreading Geralt's good name. I like their dynamic. Jaskier will be, frankly, a little annoying, kind of comic relief character, and then Geralt will just kind of say F off in a brooding tone, and it's actually kind of funny just listening to him be really rude to him. But Geralt actually does care about Jaskier. There are a few episodes where he will go out of his way to help him or save him. However, that's about where their characters end. They go on miscellaneous adventures throughout the series. The series often jumps around time, and I mean by decades. It's pretty confusing. Honestly, I have no idea what episodes go in what order, aside from 7, 1, 8 is in order, so everything from 2 to 6 is probably any order. No, because there's the B plot that matters, which I'll get to in a second. And I don't like how it jumps around in time. It makes things very confusing. Next, there's Yennefer. She is this witch. She's got a tragic backstory. She was taken from her home, albeit an unloving home, because she had this physical disability. She was hunchback. And was trained to be a mage. And again, a lot of confusing stuff there. They had to pretty much establish all the rules of how magic works in this universe in one episode, which, considering there are 3 plots, that's really only 20, 30 minutes. I remember there was this weird scene where all her friends, or a couple of her friends, got turned to eels and kicked into this pool. They didn't really explain that well at all. Matter of fact, I kind of laughed during that whole scene because, her friends got turned into eels for no apparent reason. That's pretty strange. So she eventually completes her training, and mild spoilers, because of it, she turns into a beautiful woman. However, that's at the price of her being able to have kids. So her main goal throughout the series is to find some other way to have kids. For example, one episode she is trying to summon Genie to ask for some witches. In this universe, they're called Djinns. And another episode, she's trying to find dragons so they have some healing property that can help with that. Now, the C-plot is Cirilia. She is this princess from, I'm sorry, I can't remember the location. They were attacked by Nilfgaard in the first episode. She's sent out in the forest and told to find Geralt of Rivia, and that's about her entire plot. It started out a little interesting because she would run into camps of survivors from her town, Syrintra, I think it was called. But after that, it was her just wandering the woods for like 6 episodes, and it was incredibly boring. So Yennefer's plot, back to that, it started out fairly boring in my opinion. I just hadn't cared about the characters yet, and they spent so long trying to establish all the lore of the Witcher's universe, but I just failed to grasp my attention. Eventually, I did start caring about what was going on in her plot. There were some interesting episodes with her, which I'll get to in a minute. But at the end of it, I really didn't care about either of their side plots because, you know, Ciri's still in the woods, and Yennefer is, I don't know, she jumps around with what she wants and her personality. Some episodes she's, you know, for example with Geralt, they do interact. Some episodes she's real nice with Geralt. Some episodes she's, you know, real rude to him. Some episodes she is for the mages, like their group of mages. Some episodes she's like really against it. I couldn't really get a grasp of what actually she wants. Like, so I've mentioned it previously, but there's a lot of exposition in this show, and I really don't like it. I mean, I understand they have to do it somehow, but I feel like having an exposition along with 3 plots to keep track of, a bunch of confusing names, a bunch of confusing places, politics that you don't really know quite much about, on top of jumping decades through time in a weird order, I really don't feel like that's a good show. I was super confused by it, and because of that, I found myself bored through most of it, and admittedly, I was on my phone for some of it, you know, just having it on as a background show. There's this one quote from a podcast I listened to. They said something along the lines of, if you're watching a show in the background, you don't actually like the show, you're just bored. And I think I can agree with that, and that's how I feel about the show. But I don't completely hate the show. There are a few things I do like. Geralt is one of them. I like his character. I like his kind of brooding personality. He's really cool when it comes to like fighting scenes, which are another really good high that this show does. The sword fights are excellent. However, I do feel that they're a bit unnecessarily brutal at times. I mean, there are intestines falling out of people in some scenes, if I remember correctly. And I don't know, I feel like it's a little jarring. It's kind of nice to see them go this like extra edgy direction, but at the same time, I feel that they're trying too hard, like they're trying to be Game of Thrones. And in another aspect they do that is there's a lot of unnecessary nudity. Like there's one scene, Geralt is approaching Yennefer, he's talking to her. This is, I think, one of the first time they're meeting. And for some reason, there's just a big orgy going on in the background. Full, uncensored, lots of nudity. No real explanation on why is that I could get. I think it was supposed to say something like she's missing her fertility. I don't know. It was just kind of jarring, and it felt out of place. It felt like they were just trying to shoehorn that in because Game of Thrones got really popular and it had a whole bunch of nudity in it. Now, another coincidence is Witcher and Game of Thrones. They're both based off of books. And I actually didn't know that Witcher was based off of books. I thought the video games came first because I don't read. There are lots of themes about destiny in this show, and I've never been a fan of that whole thing. I think it's kind of cheesy just saying, oh, it's your destiny to do this. I don't know. It's just never a plot point that I've liked. It's never a writing decision that I've liked. And that's the central theme. I mean, the whole thing is Geralt is destined to meet Ciri in the woods. That's a big part of it. And this comes from something called the Law of Surprise. They constantly mention this from episode 4 onwards, and I still have no clue what it means. I mean, I have an idea. I think it means, like, if you claim the Law of Surprise, which it's not even like a ritual or a spell, you just kind of say, I claim the Law of Surprise, and it happens, then you, like, have the right to somebody's kid or something like that. It's really confusing, unexplained, you know, goes back to the show doesn't make a lot of sense. Finally, there were a few good episodes, particularly episodes 3, 5, and 6. Episode 3, Geralt is trying to basically turn a monster back into human, but I think it's done really well. There's a lot of cool scenes. That's one of the few episodes I cared about Yennefer's arc, because that's when she turned from a hunchback to the beautiful woman. The way it does show, it's like really traumatic and painful. There's a lot of cool overlap with, her screaming because, her spine is getting realigned by force without any sort of anesthetic. And Geralt's monster, who is a woman, is, just screaming bloody murder the whole time. And the audio kind of syncs up. It's neat. I like that. Episode 5 is another one that I liked. This is, I mentioned earlier, the one where Yennefer is trying to get the djinn. Well, actually, Geralt started with the djinn. He was fishing because he had insomnia, so he was trying to fish out a jar with the djinn in it. And Jaskier somehow gets hurt from it. It's like cursed, like his neck gets all swollen. This is where they go to Yennefer. Yennefer helps him out with that for her own selfish reasons. I think that was a good episode. And episode 6, that's about the final one I really liked, where Yennefer, Geralt, and Jaskier, they're all coincidentally on a journey to go kill this dragon for different reasons. I think that episode was done well. There were a lot of side characters that, they were introduced and killed off 20 minutes later, but I still liked them. And that's about it. That's all I really have to say about The Witcher. I think I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. There are some cool moments, but for the most part, I found it fairly boring. I highly recommend watching Game of Thrones instead, if you can. However, I will admit this is better than Game of Thrones Season 8. That is probably one of the worst seasons of television I've ever seen. See ya.